Have you ever gotten into an Uber and just felt off? That strange feeling in your gut telling you something isn't right. Most of the time, it's nothing. But for some people, that feeling was a warning. Tonight, we're diving into 3 true, bone-chilling horror stories from Uber drivers and passengers that will make you think twice before you tap that request ride button. These aren't just spooky campfire tales. These are real experiences that happen to real people. So, buckle up. The ride is about to get terrifying. Our first story comes from a driver named Mark. He worked the late shift, usually from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in a sprawling suburban area. It was a quiet Tuesday night, almost 2 a.m., when a request pinged on his phone. The pickup location was strange, the very end of a dark, dead-end street, right next to a dense patch of woods. Mark hesitated for a second, but figured it was probably just someone whose car had broken down. When he pulled up, he saw a man standing under the single, flickering streetlight. He was tall, thin, and wearing a dark hoodie that shadowed his face. Mark unlocked the doors, and the man silently got into the back seat right behind him. "Where to?" Mark asked, trying to sound cheerful. The man just grunted and pointed forward. Mark glanced at the app. The destination was only a few miles away, at an all-night diner. Okay, not so weird. Maybe the guy just needed a late-night coffee. But as they drove, Mark started to feel increasingly uneasy. The man didn't say a word. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the man's slow, heavy breathing. Mark kept glancing in the rearview mirror, but the man's face was always obscured by the shadows of the hoodie. Then, about halfway to the diner, the man spoke. His voice was a low, gravelly whisper. "Turn here," he said, pointing to a narrow, unpaved service road leading into another dark, wooded area. Mark's heart started pounding. "Sir, the app says the diner is straight ahead," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I said, turn here," the man repeated, his voice colder this time. Every instinct in Mark's body was screaming at him. This wasn't right. He decided to take a risk. "Sorry, man, I can't go off the app's route. It's against Uber policy. For my safety and yours." He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. There was a long, tensy sit. Mark could feel the man's eyes burning into the back of his head. He was mentally preparing for the worst, his mind racing through escape plans. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the man leaned forward. Mark flinched, bracing himself, but the man just tapped on the glass partition. "Fine," he whispered. "Stop here. I'll walk." Mark didn't hesitate. He slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt in the middle of the empty road. The man got out, slammed the door, and disappeared back into the darkness from which he came. Mark sped off, not looking back until he was miles away. He canceled the rides and drove straight home, his hands shaking the entire time. He never found out who that man was or what he wanted, but he's certain that turning down that dark road would have been the last turn he ever made. Next up, we have a story from the passenger's perspective, shared by a woman named Chloe. She was visiting a friend in a new city and decided to take an Uber back to her hotel late one night. The driver who accepted her ride had a perfect 5-star rating and hundreds of positive comments. He seemed nice enough. When he arrived, a middle-aged guy with a friendly smile. They started with the usual small talk, where she was from, what she was doing in town. But then the conversation took a strange turn. The driver started asking very personal questions. Was she traveling alone? Was she staying in a hotel? Which one? Was she single? Chloe, trying to be polite, gave vague answers. but her internal alarm bells were starting to ring. She tried to change the subject, asking him about his job, but he kept circling back to her. He started complimenting her, but the compliments felt less like flattery and more like an assessment. "You have really nice hair," he said, staring at her through the rearview mirror. "I bet it's soft." Chloe felt a chill run down her spine. She pulled out her phone and pretended to be texting a friend, hoping he'd take the hint. Instead, he just got bolder. He started talking about his ex-girlfriend, how she had hair just like Chloe's, and how much he missed her. Then he missed a turn. "Hey, I think my hotel is the other way," Chloe said, her voice trembling slightly. "Oh, don't worry," the driver said with that same unnerving smile. "I know a shortcut. It's much more scenic." He turned down a dark, residential street, away from the main road. Now, Chloe was panicking. This shortcut was taking them further and further away from her destination. She opened up her Maps app. They were heading towards an industrial area on the outskirts of the city. Her heart was in her throat. She remembered a safety tip she'd once read. She faked a phone call, speaking loudly. "Hey, Mark. Yeah, I'm just 5 minutes away. I'm sharing my location with you now." The car is a silver Toyota license plate, and she read the license plate from the app. The driver's demeanor changed instantly. His smile vanished. He slammed on the brakes, pulling over abruptly. "Get out," he hissed, his voice full of venom. Chloe scrambled out of the car and didn't stop running until she saw the bright lights of a gas station. She called the police and reported the incident. They later told her the man was wanted for questioning in connection with the disappearance of another young woman a few months prior. That 5-star rating was a mask, and Chloe was terrifyingly close to finding out what was behind it. Our final story tonight is perhaps the most unsettling because it involves something that wasn't quite human. A driver named David was finishing his shift around 3 a.m. in a rural town known for its local ghost stories and folklore. He got a final ping for a pickup at the gates of an old, historic cemetery. David was a skeptic, but even he felt a little spooked. He pulled up to the enormous wrought iron gates and waited. A few moments later, a woman emerged from the shadows of the cemetery. She was wearing what looked like a vintage white dress, something out of another era. It was thin, despite the cold night air. Her face was pale, and her eyes seemed empty. She quietly got into the back seat. "To the old mill on the river," she said. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper on the wind. David started driving. The woman didn't say another word. He tried to make small talk to break the eerie silence. "Visiting family?" he asked, nodding back towards the cemetery. No response. Cold night to be out. He tried again. Still nothing. The only sound was the quiet hum of his car. He glanced in the rearview mirror and his blood ran cold. For a split second, he swore the back seat was empty. He blinked hard, and she was there again, sitting perfectly still, staring out the window. He chalked it up to exhaustion. He was tired. It was late. His mind was playing tricks on him, but the feeling of dread grew with every mile. The air in the car became icy cold, so much so that David could see his own breath. He checked. The heat was blasting. They finally arrived at the destination, the ruins of an old, dilapidated mill by the river, a place that had been abandoned for over a century. "Here we are," David said, his voice shaking. He turned to face the back seat, and it was empty. She was gone. The door hadn't opened. He would have heard it. The seatbelt was still buckled. She had just vanished. Panicked, David sped away from the old mill as fast as his car could go. The next day, he couldn't shake the experience. He went to the local library and started researching the old mill. He found a newspaper article from the 1890s about a young woman who had died tragically near that very spot. She was set to be married, but her fiancé left her. Heartbroken, she disappeared, and her body was later found in the river by the mill, wearing her white wedding dress. The article included a photograph. It was her, the woman from his car. David quit driving for Uber that day. Some things just can't be explained, and some passengers never truly reach their final destination. Thank you for joining me for these chilling true stories. Remember to trust your gut, use those safety features, and always let someone know where you're going. If you have a creepy rideshare story of your own, share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more terrifying true tales. Stay safe out there.